Tonight, Joe Biden waves the white flag. The leader pulls out of the presidential race.
A moment of sadness here. At the same time, a lot of excitement for our country.
And backs Vice President Kamala Harris to take the ticket.
Selfless act by Joe Biden that he really gave up something he wanted.
The pending process to decide the next Democratic nominee. Plus, facing the unknown in Canada.
How's this going to unfold? The truthful answer is no one knows.
And the wildfires fueled by unrelenting heat.
Our main concern is just getting our livestock out of the way.
Communities evacuate to escape the danger.
Currently burning at close to 15,000 hectares.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. It has been an astounding day in American politics. Joe Biden is surrendering after failing to crush the rebellion in his own party. He announced he will not run for a second term. In a statement, Biden says, "While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." Biden was last seen in public 4 days ago, appearing frail as he headed to his home in Delaware after testing positive for COVID. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon tonight on the series of dominoes that fell following the U.S. president's poor performance in that debate with Donald Trump.
It is an extraordinary moment in U.S. politics. President Joe Biden recovering from COVID under political pressure to step down, poll after poll showing he's hemorrhaging voters. And after that disastrous debate performance,
to do with the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
His voice raspy, losing his train of thought, he struggled.
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president.
And the pressure to bow out became too much. In a letter to Americans, Biden wrote, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down." The president had been defiant.
And I am all in.
Despite growing calls from donors, Hollywood, and Democrats urging Biden to drop out.
I come with a heavy heart to think the time has come for him to pass the torch to a new generation.
The president is throwing his support behind Vice President Kamala Harris, endorsing her to be the nominee of the Democratic Party, passing the baton to the next generation. Harris, a former senator and California prosecutor, could become the first Black and Asian American nominee to hold national office. Issuing her own statement, Harris said she's honored to have the president's endorsement, saying, "My intention is to earn and win this nomination." Harris has a big advantage already on the ticket. Biden's campaign cash goes to her. She's taken on a bigger role fighting for abortion rights.
How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body?
And out with a new ad attacking Donald Trump.
He's a world leader in temper tantrums. She never loses her cool.
And when we fight, we win.
But it's not a done deal. Democrats don't want a coronation. The Clintons and the Black Caucus rallying around Harris, but Barack Obama stopped short of backing her, calling for an open nomination where other up-and-coming stars could challenge her. Fresh off his own successful convention, Donald Trump, who survived an assassination attempt on his life just 1 week ago, mocking Biden, calling him to resign his presidency immediately, saying crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve.
I call her laughing Kamala.
The Trump campaign already turning to target Harris as being more liberal and less competent than Biden, asking supporters at a rally yesterday.
Ready? Kamala Harris. Crooked Joe Biden.
The president will address the nation later this week to explain what changed his mind. After 50 years in politics, the oldest president ever to serve is standing down. A pivotal moment for America. Mirella?
Joy in Washington tonight. It's been more than 50 years since a sitting president decided he wouldn't run for a second term. Lyndon Johnson was the last in 1968. Johnson withdrew 7 months before the election. At the time, Americans were deeply divided about the war in Vietnam and the civil rights fight. Capitalizing on the chaos under the Democrats, Richard Nixon won the election for the Republicans. The Democratic National Convention is only weeks away, so what's the plan? On that question, let's go to CTV's political specialist, Vashi Kappelos. Vashi, Biden supports Harris as the nominee, but she isn't guaranteed that spot, is she?
Hi, Morella. Yeah, people are certainly, and high-profile Democrats, I should say, lining up between who Joe Biden has endorsed to replace him, Vice President Kamala Harris. But that doesn't mean it's guaranteed. In fact, the Democratic Party released a statement today saying that they will embark on an orderly and transparent process, whatever that is, to find out who the next nominee is. But I think that's the big question moving forward now in the coming hours and days. They have two paths they can choose. One is the anointment of the vice president as the nominee. The other is an open competition in which there might be even a mini primary of sorts at the Democratic National Convention here in Chicago, where I am, in just a few weeks' time. And at that point, they would pick the nominee, and Kamala Harris would be one of the people running to replace Joe Biden in those circumstances. So I'm really curious to see which of the two paths the party essentially embarks on, but it's their decision to make, and we are expected to hear news on that sometime soon.
Got it, Vashi. Thanks for that. Whatever they decide could get derailed by the Republicans. With battleground states at play, it could get ugly.
I think if you're a Republican and right now, I think you are filing lawsuits in perhaps every state, if not the key battleground states, to try to limit this new ticket, which whoever it will be.
So, of course, Canada will be watching closely to see who ends up being the nominee. That person could help or hinder Ottawa's agenda for the next 4 years. CTV's Jeremy Charon tonight with the outlook from this side of the border.
It's Canada's most important friendship, but tonight, new questions about the face of it. In a statement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau thanked Biden, calling him a great man guided by love for his country, a partner to Canadians, and a true friend.
We are lucky on the world stage to have Joe Biden leading here at NATO.
Trudeau had that to say just over a week ago in Washington when asked about the president. For more than 50 years, President Joe Biden has literally defined public service, said U.S. Ambassador to Canada David Cohen. I have been proud to say that I serve the United States and represent my friend, President Biden, in Canada. Canada's ambassador to the U.S., Kristen Hillman, called Biden an experienced, thoughtful, and dedicated leader.
I do have a moment of sadness here for him, and yet at the same time, a lot of excitement for our country and the path ahead.
But it's a path that isn't yet paved, with a race to the White House that just took yet another turn.
For Canada, when we think about our relationship with the United States, we have to ask, how's this going to unfold?
We are two countries with close ties, but now Canada faces new unknowns about who will occupy the White House next and what it could mean for key partnerships.
We're still coming into a CUSMA, NAFTA, USMCA review, and that could be very precarious for Canada. That could really destabilize the fundamentals of our trading and investment system.
The race to the White House tonight is more complicated for Canada. The only thing we know for sure is it won't be President Biden answering Canada's calls come November. Morella?
Jeremy in Ottawa tonight. World leaders also weighing in on this seismic shift. The new UK leader says he will have made his decision based on what he believes is best for the American people. And kudos from the German chancellor, saying Joe Biden has achieved a lot for his country, for Europe, for the world. From Spain tonight, a great gesture from a great president. And the Israeli leader will arrive in Washington tomorrow to meet Biden and discuss the future of the war in Gaza. The latest airstrikes have killed at least 15 people, including young children. 9 have died in an assault on a refugee camp in central Gaza. In a southern city, 6 people were killed. Lightning has sparked a series of wildfires in southern and eastern British Columbia. A section of the Trans-Canada Highway is now shut down. And authorities have issued evacuation orders because the merciless heat is supercharging those wildfires. CTV's Penny Daflos reports.
Smoke-choked skies hang over the Fraser Canyon as the aggressive Shetland Creek wildfire resists efforts to tame it.
It's been very stressful. This is our third major fire since 2017, the third time that the village has gone on alert.
The communities of Ashcross, Spence's Bridge, and Cache Creek are preparing to evacuate, watching to see just where the 150 square kilometer blaze could shift next.
We're geared up and we're actively just getting everything secured and ready for this fight, if it should come our way.
Ranchers are taking advantage of calm weather to move hundreds of cattle to safety. They can't plan too far ahead given how quickly things are changing.
A lot of different variables, a lot of different factors involved.
Fire did roughly an 8.5-kilometer run north.
There are now more than 120 firefighters, plus heavy equipment operators and 10 helicopters battling the Shetland Creek blaze. But there are hundreds more now burning across BC following weeks of high heat drying out our forests.
It's easy to look at that 324 fires and be overwhelmed, but we have had good initial attack success. In the last 7 days, we've declared 182 wildfires out.
They're doing a magnificent job. I'm very thankful for them.
Mother Nature continues to work against them. Hot, dry conditions are forecast to continue with even more lightning expected.
Over the last 3 days, we've had a lot of lightning, and that has again landed in those really dry forest fuels,
sparking even more fires in the tinderbox that is the backcountry.
The next 24 to 48 hours are really going to be the critical point for this region.
Plans are now unfolding for a new camp for firefighters to stay there long term as the Fraser Canyon becomes the site of what may be a months-long battle to preserve homes and livelihoods. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
Now, on the other side of the country, there's a squabble about emergency alerts. Some say there should be more of them to make sure communities know what's coming. Earlier this month, about a month's worth of rain fell in only a few hours in Nova Scotia, doing all kinds of damage. Here's CTV's Paul Hollingsworth.
Urgent calls are pouring in to improve public alerts in Nova Scotia.
We need them to act when something happens.
The July 11th flooding in Nova Scotia began late afternoon with more than 100 millimeters of rain pouring down in just a few hours. But none of the affected municipalities issued an emergency alert.
I was indoors from 6 to 7, went out and realized how much rain had fallen.
In a rare move, the province sent out its own alert at 8:30 that night. Provincial Cabinet Minister John Lohr has criticized the local municipalities in a letter for not requesting an alert during severe flooding that resulted in the death of 13-year-old Eli Young. Based on the letter from the minister, the province is working on modernizing its systems, but the minister also expects local authorities to be more vigilant when issuing alerts.
They have the first responder tools and direct communication with the first responder tools. So we need them to act when something happens.
Municipal Mayor Peter Moudart says local authorities were monitoring weather conditions during the worst of the storm.
There were no events that happened in Kings County that would have given rise to the issuance of an alert from Kings County.
It all brings back painful memories for Tara Cisco. Cisco's 6-year-old son Colton died in last year's historic flooding in Nova Scotia. The night her son died, Cisco says the emergency alert came far too late.
Nobody knows what to do. I think whether it's municipality or the province, it does need to be fixed, and this is just more evidence that there needs to be solutions and it needs to be quicker.
Cisco wants both sides to stop pointing fingers and work together to prevent future tragedies like the one that has devastated her family. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
A couple who set sail from Nova Scotia on a dream adventure has tragically been found dead. Canadian Brett Clibbery and his British wife Sarah Packwood left June 11th. They were reported missing only days later. Then their yacht washed up on an island near Nova Scotia. They'd been headed for the Azores in Portugal. Coming up, the struggle to reboot and recover after that global outage. How secure are our cyber defenses? Plus, celebrating a happy ending for 7 fishermen. A massive IT outage that left the world to pick up the pieces has raised questions about how we do or don't hold big tech accountable. The chaos, confusion has exposed glaring gaps in Canada's cyber defenses. CTV's Kamal Karamali explains.
The world slowly coming back online after a bug in a software update grounded airlines, with many still stranded today.
But now we canceled everything because you can't even rent cars.
Hospitals, banks, and broadcasters impacted. For many here, one thing became abundantly clear. Canada's response wasn't good enough.
I would score it very poorly, like let's say a 3 out of 10.
Although the outage was related to faulty software, cyber experts look at this as a test run in preparing for a cyber attack. And Canada failed.
Canada is not prepared. There's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Now looking to other nations that are better prepared.
The European Union has its Cyber Resilience Act, which holds companies accountable for making sure they're doing everything they can to keep themselves and their stakeholders safe.
While Australia has a Minister of Cybersecurity responsible for tackling issues like the global outage on Friday.
Well, having a cyber czar, or the one point of contact, makes sense.
The country even has a cybersecurity strategy until 2030 that commits funding and other resources for the next few years towards threats related to the cyber world.
Whereas in Canada, we did introduce a national cybersecurity strategy earlier this year, but there's very little budget, there's no timeline.
Now pushing for Canada to type up a strategy with more teeth.
What I'd like to see is more grants, more resources being given to small to mid-sized businesses to prepare them for what is the inevitable.
The federal government says it's working on a revamp of its current cybersecurity strategy, including a new bill which would make it mandatory for companies to have a cybersecurity plan in place. That bill is currently before the Senate. Marilla.
Thanks, Kamal. Still ahead, from playful pranks to property damage. The social media challenge that could lead to criminal charges. An escalated game of Nicky Nicky Nine Doors could get 2 BC teens in trouble. They face being charged by police. What used to be a prank has ramped up to something more aggressive, damaging front doors and harassing homeowners. CTV's Kathy Lee reports.
It seems innocent enough. Knock on a stranger's door and run. But Nicky Nicky Nine Doors, or Ding Dong Ditch, is getting violent.
Kids are now kicking doors with such force that they're leaving dents or compromising the integrity of the door.
In Surrey, BC, many homeowners now paying for those damages. The teenagers involved could be facing charges of mischief. RCMP believe they were influenced by a TikTok trend, the door kicking challenge.
If it's done on purpose, sure, it should be charged.
I'd feel scared to death. I'd probably run out the back door and call 911.
A search on the social media platform brings up compilations of teenagers standing in front of a door of a house, in a school or other building, and filming each other donkey kicking the door, sometimes busting it in, and then running away.
They are seeking validation from the others. So peer pressure is probably the highest in their life.
In Canada, the door kicking challenge happening in other places. A few years ago, an incident in Port Dover and Cambridge, Ontario.
The police are certainly wanting to stop the trend, but what they're also thinking of, if we don't stop this trend, people in their homes are going to take action to stop the trend.
So far, no reports of physical retaliation from Surrey residents. But in February, 2 teens were struck by a truck in Abbotsford, BC, after allegedly engaging in a door knock prank.
Don't engage. When engaging with the youth, they're running scared, and you might be angry.
Surrey RCMP is urging parents to talk to their teenagers about respecting people's property. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
After the break, a hero's welcome home. The lucky 7 who survived terrifying days lost at sea. A search at sea can often end without success. So when 7 East Coast fishermen disappeared last week, you can only imagine how panicked their families were. But those fishers have been found in a life raft. They got a hero's welcome in New West Valley, Newfoundland. They had a parade to mark the miracle. Here's NTV's Mary Kate O'Neill with a tale of the survival of the Lucky Seven.
For the adjacent fishing vessel, Elite Navigator has been located and are safe.
7 men, 1 life raft, and a whole province praying for a miracle.
Well, she vanished, as far as we was concerned. She went off all the electronics that we had for reporting the boat's position, just chopped off 9 o'clock.
Then early Saturday morning, a beacon of hope shined through the thick coastal Newfoundland fog. There they were, all 7 men of the Elite Navigator alive.
No words can explain it. None.
The fishing vessel went missing off the northeast coast of Newfoundland on Wednesday, with its last known location approximately 300 kilometers northeast of Gander. At around 1 a.m. on Saturday, Gander Search and Rescue located the men safely in a life raft.
Again, there's just no words to describe it. It's unreal. It's just so good to have them all back on the land.
It was somewhat of a mystery what happened to the Elite Navigator until now. Today, the surviving crew tell the frightening tale of a fire at sea, a fisherman's nightmare.
We smelled smoke, and just within a few seconds, the boat was just starting to get engulfed in flames. And it was we had to make a quick move, and it was something that we probably didn't want to do, but we had to take drastic measures. Pretty much within 5 minutes, we were in our immersion suits, and we jumped out and we had to get into the life raft. We lost a lot of communication, everyone frustrated, but we came back in on land, and we're just happy to be here today with all of our family and friends.
But Saturday afternoon, a reunion like no other. Hundreds of people from near and far gathered to welcome the men back home.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything.
These men, first bonded together by passion, are now forever entwined. And this community, well, it's one big, now happy family.
Quite amazing. That story from NTV's Mary Kate O'Neill. That's a wrap on the day. I'm Morella Fernandez. For all of us here at CTV National News, thanks for sharing your time. Good night.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast.
Canadians have turned to CTV National News for more than 60 years.
And now there's a new national newscast at 5:30.
It's more of the news you trust.
More of the experience you rely on.
Watch Canada's #1 national news now at 5:30 and 11.